It's going to continue. Partly cloudy. We're into the low 80s this afternoon, down around 60 tonight. Mid-80s and dry for your Friday. Heading into the Labor Day weekend, we'll hover right there in the low to mid-80s with a low chance of an isolated shower or thunderstorm. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
The road to the championship begins at the track that's too tough to tame. Darlington Raceway. Don't miss the Cookout Southern 500. Kicking off the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs this Sunday night. Coverage begins at 6 p.m. and every lap, bump, and battle is live on Lake Norman's home for NASCAR. WSIC. Local starts here. Racing lives here.
From her powerful journey to her book, Healing Hugs, a mother-daughter story of love and resilience, Coach C turns pain into purpose. She's a cancer survivorship coach bringing practical hope through journals, greeting cards, and soul-restoring retreats. Learn more at crushingchemochick.com.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Thursdays at 4 o'clock. If you're a 9-to-5er, now you've got 53 minutes, 24 seconds until you hit that 5 o'clock bell. And I appreciate so much you spending that time with us here as we're giving attention to all things economic and financial. Looking at, it's going to be exciting again today. Don't tell me it's not exciting. We're going to be looking at earnings reports and probably $100 pancakes. No, really, we're going to be talking about $100 pancakes later in the show. It's a little bit of a tease. I want you to hang around for that as well. But I appreciate you spending this time with us here. Again, talking about all things economic and financial, looking around the world, looking at specific companies, often even specific investments, investment styles, and strategies. But in doing so, you recall as a previous listener, $2 and cents, that nothing that we're talking about here is intended as a specific recommendation for you. Meaning that even though we're taking a look at these things in some detail, and I'll tell you in advance, we look at some things that are a little bit more in a positive light, maybe some other things that are a little bit more in a negative light. Again, in doing so, we recognize everybody's in their own particular financial space, and we strongly, strongly recommend that you reach out to your tax advisor, your financial advisor, or if you'd like to reach out to us at North Main Financial Group, love to hear from you. Love to chat about your particular financial situation, see if there are ways in which we might be able to be helpful to you. Online, you can find us at northmainfinancial.com. That's north like the direction, Main like the street, financial.com. Northmainfinancial.com. We have a contact page on there. Leave us a phone number or an email address. Let us know the most preferred and desirable ways for us to contact you, again, at northmainfinancial.com. You're also welcome to call us here in the studio. I mean, producer Reese is back with me here. He must have drawn the short straw to get back in the studio with me here. He'll be able to take your calls. Can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to get to your question today. We've got a very full hour, but certainly producer Reese will take it down and I'll get to it. If not today, I promise you in next week's show. 844-STUDIO-4. That's 844-788-3464. That's 844-788-3464 here in the studio. Love to hear from you. Again, I want to make sure that the topics we're talking about always are relevant and helpful to you as we're looking at your financial journey, or perhaps if you're looking to make some changes, perhaps you're leaving an employer and you're going to another job opportunity, perhaps you're getting ready to retire, all those good kinds of things. Happy to speak into those kinds of things. All right, let's keep going here. Big week. It's earnings time. I feel like we're always getting ready to go into or coming out of earnings time, and because so many companies now run on all shapes, sizes, and varieties of fiscal years, meaning their particular business year doesn't run on the calendar year. There's a sense in which that's always true. We're always running into and out of earnings season, but certainly we're in the throes of it right now. And hard to say there's a bigger week than this week relative to the size of the companies that are or have reported, I should say. And I'm going to start with the biggest one. And when I talk about biggest one, I'm talking about the biggest one out there in terms of market cap. Yes, I'm looking at you, NVIDIA. Ticker symbol NVDA. Nancy Victor David Alpha came out with, I would have to say, probably the most anticipated quarterly earnings report, certainly of this particular cycle. I think there were more people waiting on that earnings report than were worried about what the Federal Reserve was talking about last week, which is kind of interesting when you take it in perspective there. But they came out with earnings here yesterday. I would say by all reasonable measures, and I have to say reasonable measures because I'm not so sure that any reasonable measures are being used right now to evaluate NVIDIA because they've just had another incredible year from a return standpoint. Maybe not as big as some of the triple-digit years they've had here in past years, but I don't know if you're talking about mid-30s or I think it's about 30% return ROI just since January 1st. I think that's a pretty incredible year, way outside of expectation in my end of things. But their success has now put them into a space where now if they are not just exceeding by ridiculous near geometric measures on a quarterly basis, the market takes it as and not very impressive. And I'll say it this way: sales for NVIDIA objectively up over 50% in the past quarter, year over year. Quarterly earnings were very good, but not at the blowout level. And that really was what the market was anticipating, which is crazy. It's crazy. And yes, you're getting my commentary on this as well. I'm not saying NVIDIA is a bad company or a bad stock. I'm also not saying that you should own it, trade or sell it. I say that constantly, that this is not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the company on the debt or the equity side of things, but really looking at it just in terms of market expectations. I mean, just some incredible numbers that they share. Some of the estimates in terms of the amount of spending globally, which will be done on AI over the next 5 years. I mean, the chairman, Henson Wong, put out there that $4 trillion additional capital to be yet spent on AI, and you have to put NVIDIA right. If not at the top, then certainly in the thick of things relative to that capital spending. They've seen those results already. They've benefited from those results already, and certainly their shareholders have as well. But again, you want to evaluate it going forward because what's behind you, frankly, doesn't matter at this point, especially if you're not a shareholder or a debt holder. The only thing that matters is what goes forward, and that's why we're always very, very cautious, especially on those kinds of companies that have had a tremendous run. Be careful. Be careful. Very, very important that you evaluate based upon your own particular circumstances. Don't just buy it because it's had a great year to date. Don't just buy it because your friend said that they bought it 8 years ago at $4 a share because, well, I would want to question the truthfulness of that statement because it certainly wasn't very popular at the top of most people's radar screens at that time in the ways that it is now. So very, very interesting. In terms of the quarterly earnings report, I would say really rather blasé. So even though they came out with some really truly above expectation numbers, some incredible growth here over the last quarter and year over year, still the stock was actually down a little bit during the day. I think it popped up to a little bit of the positive range before I came on air here. I don't know exactly how it closed there at 4 o'clock Eastern as of the time of this live broadcast or this recording, if you happen to be listening to the recording. But it certainly wasn't a blowout. Certainly wasn't the kind of experience that other quarterly earnings have been where it's just been just this almost utopic, euphoric level response, and we didn't have that. And the market overall was pretty blasé about it as well. So frankly, I think that's a good thing. I don't think that the entire market should be shifting based upon what one company's quarterly earnings report is, whether they're the largest company by market capitalization or not that's out there. It's very, very important that the market moves of its own volition. Doesn't always do that, and that's why we bring it up here. So when we're looking at, again, just in terms of the earnings end of things, I got to talk about another one here. This is on the retail side of things, Dick's Sporting Goods. Dick's Sporting Goods, ticker symbol David Kelly Sam, DKS. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock there. Friends, I came out with this one. They're looking, by the way, to close on their deal with Foot Locker here in the next couple of months, meaning their buyout of Foot Locker here in the next couple of months. And I was surprised by how, I would say, optimistic that senior management there at Dick's Sporting Goods is with regards to their expectation on the consumer. And that's because I've looked at other retail companies who have not been nearly as enthusiastic in terms of their expectation. Dick's Sporting Goods, though, is very optimistic about closing the deal, closing the buyout of Foot Locker, very optimistic about how that would be accretive to earnings going forward, and then with regards to the strength of the consumer. So at least insofar as it comes into sporting goods, still pretty enthusiastic by what lies ahead of them. We're going to be watching that, and certainly as things develop, we're going to be bringing it to you. But just before then, we're going to take a little break here. Hear from our sponsors. Back in a few seconds here on WSIC.
Make no mistake,
Did you say steak?
We'll be back to talk more finances and food on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
You know, to be honest with you, we've just been downright spoiled over the last several days with our beautiful weather. Cool mornings, comfy afternoons. It's going to continue. Partly cloudy. We're into the low 80s this afternoon, down around 60 tonight. Mid-80s and dry for your Friday. Heading into the Labor Day weekend, we'll hover right there in the low to mid-80s with a low chance of an isolated shower or thunderstorm. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. On Thursday, August 28th, the 500 Club in Statesville presents the Thirsty Thursday tournament at 5:30 p.m. and wine tasting at 6. Click on the 500 Club online for more information on golf lessons, club memberships, wine tasting, tournaments, and tee times. Rocky Lynn performs Friday night on the Plaza at Birkdale Village in Huntersville. The free Live Under the Oaks outdoor concert series powered by Waves Entertainment begins at 6 p.m. Grab your friends and your chairs for the Rocky Lynn concert Friday at Birkdale Village. The Iredell County Fair begins Friday at the Fairgrounds in Troutman and continues through September 6th. The Statesville Kiwanis Club features carnival rides for all ages, competitive 4-H exhibits, animal shows, fireworks on Labor Day, and more. Visit IredellFair.com for more information on hours, tickets, entertainment, and daily schedules. The Iredell County Fair begins Friday at the Fairgrounds in Troutman. See the top riders from the Monster Energy AMA Supercross Championship on Saturday, September 6th, as they compete on a custom-built course at ZMAX Dragway. The playoff opener features a two-moto format for the 450cc class and 250cc class, promising plenty of drama and excitement from the moment the gates drop. Click on CharlotteMotorspeedway.com for tickets, a track map, and information on other 2025 events. Mark your calendars. Green Jeans Consignment returns to Concord September 9th to 14th at 601 Milestone Venue. Shop boutique finds, consign your closet, and feel beautiful on a budget. Details at greenjeanssale.com. Stay up to date and find out about local events, job opportunities, real estate information, and more. Visit liveworkplaylkn.com and sign up for the weekly newsletter. That's liveworkplaylkn.com.
It all started with a little meet cute at Paloma in Mooresville, where flavors intertwine and moments become lasting memories. Craft cocktails, elegant small bites that aren't so small. Live music Thursday to Saturday. Visit palomacocktails.com and see what everyone's whispering about.
From market trends to retirement plans, Joshua Dobi has you covered. We're back with more Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second quarter of today's show, that's a football reference, and you know that. Second quarter of the show, we are very often talking about football here, especially when it's now, you got it, football season. And you might say, well, as a previous listener to Dollars and Cents, you constantly talk about football during the second quarter of the show, even when it's not football season. Correct. That's what we do. That is absolutely correct. And and you know how we've been counting down here. You know how we've been counting down for months, basically since the Super Bowl. We've been counting down for months. I mean, it's almost here. Preseason's here. Official 7 days. 7 days. Producer Reese and I were talking during the break there and about how much we are looking forward to the Panthers. I mean, and at this point, the Panthers continue to be mathematically in the exact same position as every single other team in the NFL to win the Super Bowl. We're right there, Producer Reese. I mean, we're right there. I mean, 18 weeks. Isn't it 18 weeks? Because we've got 17 games now with a bye week. Is it 18 weeks total? I mean, in 18 weeks, we could be looking at playoffs and a Super Bowl possibility. Actually, it's 19 weeks since we don't start till next week. And since we have our first game next week. So that's all right. 7 days to go. And at college football, big college football weekend. Big. And just a little anecdotal as well. No, maybe not anecdotal, depending upon how you're looking at it. There was, let's call it some disagreement between Fox Sports and YouTube TV. Now, have you, Producer Reese, you familiar with YouTube TV? Basically the streaming service, right? Not YouTube with the short videos or long videos, I guess. but where you can get actual television on there, I think it's great. That's just my own opinion. Not an endorsement of YouTube TV, of course, but YouTube TV owned by Google publicly traded company, GOOG, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the debt or equity there. But they were in disagreement with Fox to the extent that there was some concern that YouTube TV was not going to broadcast or stream, rather, the football games, the college football games this weekend on Fox. And that includes that barn burner between Texas and Ohio State. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, very likely the entire state of Texas and the entire state of Ohio may have marched on YouTube headquarters if that would have been the case. So I think it was probably maybe a little bit of self-preservation. I don't want to speak for anybody there, but apparently there's a temporary agreement now in place between YouTube TV and Fox. So for all those who watch their sports on YouTube TV, you do not need to worry about Fox being on there and the Big House game, or not the Big House. That's not good to say around Ohio State, folks. But the big game between Ohio State and the University of Texas, and there are few teams that I've heard hyped up more than this one on the college football end of things. Of course, University of Texas, if you're not familiar, the Longhorn State there, and also their mascot got Arch Manning as their quarterback. And I would like to say that there have been other big-time quarterbacks recently who have had more hype and anticipation of starting the game. I can't think of one recently. It's almost not fair to the kid, right? He's got that last name. He's got 2-3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks literally in his lineage, including his two uncles and grandfather. And man, that's a lot of expectation. Yeah. Then you're in Texas where everything's just bigger and expectations are greater. And that's got to be a lot. What I'm saying is if Texas doesn't take it to the Buckeyes, I hear this happen. I would not want to be listening to sports talk radio in Texas if they don't make it big. So anyhow, kind of interesting. So all of you who are watching the television there relative to football, big college football weekend. We got App State also locally here. We got App State, and I want to say UNC Charlotte, I think is the line, and it may even be. I want to say it's even
the 49ers.
I believe they play the 49ers. If maybe double check me on that when we have.
I think they were talking about that on Good Morning LKN.
Well, that doesn't surprise me because we got some App State boys on Good Morning LKN, yeah. So that doesn't surprise me. So we'll double check me on that. I think it's UNC Charlotte. So even locally here we got, and of course we got NC State. We got the Tar Heels as well. Everybody's playing this weekend. Big weekend for college football. So if you're into that kind of thing, make sure you tune in. We're always talking about that on this end of things. Let's pivot a little bit. We're going to be talking a little bit more on broad market, economic kind of things here. I bring this up. 2 big data points, which were released today, or let me say broadcast today. And I'm going to start with unemployment figures. I don't talk about them with as much frequency right now, frankly, because they have been, I don't want to say this word, linear. They've been very much in expectations here over the last, I would say, several months. I was one, and I'll raise my hand. You go back and listen to the old recordings. Definitely true. Checking me on this. Now, I was one who thought we would see a notable bump up in unemployment rates here in 2025 because of the movements by the Federal Reserve to so quickly raise interest rates at that point. Folks, it hasn't happened. New claims came out today, 229,000, which I know is a very large number, but relative to a country of our size and our workforce is very much in line with expectations for a, quote, normal week of unemployment claims. Continuing claims, those folks who are longer than a week on claim, right around 1.8 million right now, which, again, a lot of people and a big number, but that, when you're looking at the macro, when you're looking at us as an economy overall in this country, very much in line with what we would consider to be very nearly full employment by economists in terms of how those things are measured. Now, I'm not taking away from the folks who have filed claim or on continuing claim at all, but when you're looking at us as the masses here, pretty much in line with what we would consider to be a normal week. I thought those numbers would be notably higher by now. It's not happened. Are they going to go higher? Maybe. Certainly the Federal Reserve Board chair talked about that a little bit last week during the meeting of the board out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Very interesting in terms of the rhetoric that was used. I got to keep going down this line because Jerome Powell, chairman of the board for the Federal Reserve Board, very, I would say, just very direct in terms of his kind of end of meeting, end of conference review that he gave on Friday. And the market just took off. Very interesting. And so you're saying, well, why'd the market take off when listening to Jerome Powell's speech? Well, because he all but assured the market that, and I'll say that, go back and listen to his speech. You may have a different opinion than I do on that. He all but assured the market that at the September meeting, the Federal Reserve Board was going to be lined up to cut interest rates. Now, you've heard me say a lot on this show over the last several months that there was expectation, well, even 10 months ago, there was expectation by the markets. I'm laughing because it was laughable at that time, even funnier now, that the Federal Reserve Board would cut rates count them 7 times this year. Well, folks, that was crazy then, and it certainly is crazy now. But the market has continued to, as it's moderated its thoughts on it, as shown by the futures markets, it has shown indication that it expected the Federal Reserve Board to cut rates, and it looks like they're going to. Now, nothing's real until it's real. We got a meeting coming up here in the second week of September, which will have, again, a convening of the board where they will take the vote on how they're going to, or not, adjust the overnight lending rate, which is a benchmark used by practically every financial institution on the planet in a direct or indirect kind of way. And but what was surprising to me was how the Fed board chair came out and all but said that that's what they were going to do, which made me think, well, you must have the votes in your pocket, or you already know what some of these folks are going to, or how they're going to vote, meaning that there's going to be a majority vote in that direction. Now, a lot can happen in a couple of weeks, so something could definitely shift that. I was just surprised at how very nearly definitive he was. And the market certainly thought he was being definitive because the market took off in a positive direction, as we've talked about. When the Federal Reserve Board cuts rates in this kind of environment, certainly over the last decade and a half or so, the equity markets tends to really like it, at least in the short run, because that indicates a lower cost of capital. Lower cost of capital relative to company spending means an opportunity for increased margins, increased stock prices. You can see where that thought process goes. But it's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks. I was just, I guess, surprised is the best way to describe it, at his candor and his willingness to be so definitive in terms of how the Fed board was leaning, and very possibly what's going to be happening here in a couple of weeks. So we'll be certainly watching that and certainly bring that to you as things evolve there. I'm going to bring up another number here, not related directly to the Federal Reserve, but certainly with regards to the overall stock markets. And I've seen this a couple of times just relative to the number of companies that have announced these. But this was the first time I saw it in just very quick format. This is the Wall Street Journal that had this out, talking about the number of stock buybacks or stock share buybacks by some of the largest publicly traded companies out there. Now, first, let's define what that is. So a stock buyback is when a company decides that they are going to go into the open market and buy back their stock. Now, you say, well, why would a company want to buy back their own stock? Well, it's several different reasons. I'm going to give you a couple of the big ones that are sitting out there. A, they have a lot of capital, meaning just liquid or near cash-like reserves that they're not using for other purposes. So they're not buying other companies. They're not reinvesting it into their own company. They're not paying out dividends or as many dividends as they have capital. And so they're looking for another way for them to use their capital that will be beneficial for the company. And so it can be, not always, it can be a positive indication when a company is wanting to buy back their own stock, meaning it's saying, in part, possibly to the market, hey, we think our stock is undervalued. We're buying it with the interest that we're going to hold on to it for capital appreciation. Now, that's one commonly held belief when it comes to stock buybacks. However, it could also be because you're unnaturally propping up the market to substantiate the price of your stock so that maybe the stock options of your highest executives don't go down or depreciate. You say, well, that never happens. Yeah, it happens. It really does. And I'm not going to point fingers or do anything beyond what the public record says. But I'm just saying that because sometimes folks get a little euphoric on this idea of stock buybacks. And I say, it can be good, just like about anything else when it comes to the markets. It's possible that it's good, but let's take a look under the hood a little bit. Let's figure out what else is happening with that company. may or may not be good. Make your own decisions. Well, friends, we're going to take a little breather here. Hear from our sponsors one more time for the halfway break. Come back with us here on WSIC.
Make no mistake,
Did you say steak?
we'll be back to talk more finances and food on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
You know, to be honest with you, we've just been downright spoiled over the last several days with our beautiful weather. Cool mornings, comfy afternoons. It's going to continue. Partly cloudy. We're into the low 80s this afternoon, down around 60 tonight. Mid-80s and dry for your Friday. Heading into the Labor Day weekend, we'll hover right there in the low to mid-80s with a low chance of an isolated shower or thunderstorm. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Hi, this is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
Are you sick of running out of hot water? Whether it's in the middle of a shower or doing dishes, cold water's never fun. Say goodbye to those surprises with a Rinnai tankless water heater from GMV Energy. This energy-efficient propane-powered solution heats water instantly, so you'll never run out again. Plus, it saves money and frees up space. Propane models start at just $295 after rebates. Visit any G&B Energy location or gbenergy.com to learn more.
Have you taken the Desco Challenge? The people have spoken. Desco is where the professional goes for electrical supplies.
Hi, my name is Randy. I'm a general contractor, and I always trust the products at Desco.
See for yourself at DescoInc.com.
Harrison's is the home of Work Western and wow! For nearly 30 years, our family has been boots on the ground when it comes to work. We have the largest selection of in-stock boots in the Carolinas and the best workwear brands like Harriet, Carhartt, and Wrangler. Find us on Norman Station Boulevard in Mooresville.
If you need home medical equipment, call Lowry Drug in Statesville. We have everything you need in stock, including portable oxygen concentrators, CPAPs, masks, lift chairs, wheelchairs, scooters, hospital beds, supplies, and anything else you need. Get it when you need it. Check out LowryDrug.com or call 704-873-2247. Lowry Drug, your hometown source since 1959, across from Iredell Memorial Hospital. We are worth the drive. Come see us.
Harness the healing power of horses with the amazing staff at Willow Equine in Mooresville. We create a supportive environment conducive to healing and growth, dedicated to self-discovery and overcoming adversity. There's a program for you at willowequine.com.
Prioritizing your health is one of the best ways to take care of yourself. From routine visits to the joys of pregnancy to the illnesses that stop you in your tracks, Iredell Health System will be by your side. Learn more at iredellhealth.org.
This is Sheriff Darren Campbell with the Iredell County Sheriff's Office. Every day, scammers are targeting people right here in our community through phone calls, emails, and text messages, trying to steal your money, your personal information, and even your identity. If someone calls claiming to be from a government, a bank, or even law enforcement demanding money or personal details, stop and think. Legitimate organizations will never ask for gift cards, wire transfers, or your passwords over the phone or email. If something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. Hang up, don't click that link, and never share personal information with someone you don't trust. At the Iredell County Sheriff's Office, we're working to protect our community, and we're proud to partner with WSIC because local starts here, and keeping you informed keeps you safe. Stay alert, stay smart, and don't fall for a scam.
Busy? Tired? Not into big gyms? Try 20 minutes twice a week at The Exercise Coach. Private, tech-driven workouts tailored for you. Across from Birkdale Village, serving the 50-plus community for over 5 years. Sign up for 2 free sessions at exercisecoach.com/Huntersville today.
It ain't easy being number one, but we make it look good.
WSIC.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. People are doing a lot less printing, at least with their own printers. That's a drag on the world's biggest printer maker. But more than offsetting that weakness for HP is strength in sales of its PCs, helped by hot demand for those running the latest AI software. HP has responded to tariffs by switching where it sources most of its products it sells in the U.S. from China to other places. More layoffs are on the way at Nike, this time affecting 1% of its corporate staff as the world's largest sportswear retailer restructures its organization and tries to spark a turnaround. It's unclear how many jobs will be impacted. Nike slashed more than 1,600 positions back in February of last year to lower costs amid demand pressures. And it's been pumping out newspapers since 1868. But at the end of this year, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, that's the city's biggest paper, will be online only. No more printed newspapers. Erica Herskowitz, Bloomberg Radio.
The button pushing stops here.
WSIC. Local starts here.
From market trends to retirement plans, Joshua Dobi has you covered. We're back with more Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here into the second half of today's show. That's a football reference. We were talking a little football, but we were also talking about stock buybacks. And you're like, how do those things go together? Hey, it's all stuff that begins with the letter F. Don't get too carried away on me here. Football, finance, and food. We're going to hit all three of them today. We were talking a little bit on finance end of things right before we went to break there, talking about stock buybacks. So we defined what that is. A company decides that they're going to be buying back their stock in the open market. They do that, A, because they have an excess of capital, B, because they may not have other things on which they're spending that capital, and C, I mean, it's implied, but just to say it out loud, that they think that that stock may be undervalued, and they want to hold on to that stock just like any investor would, believing that it's going to go up in value. Now, as I told you just before we went to break there, it's not always perfect. Those reasons are not always pure, but it certainly can be the case. So the reason why I'm bringing that up, though, is because this year, in terms of dollar amounts announced stock buybacks, the dollar amount of stock buybacks for the first time in our country's history has eclipsed $1 trillion. $1 trillion of announced stock buybacks. And most of the companies who are at the top of that list, you're going to recognize very, very quickly. Some of the largest companies, including the largest companies that are out there in the market space: Apple, Google, NVIDIA, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the equity or the debt in any of those companies. Those are the top five in terms of announced stock buybacks. Now, it doesn't lock them in. There's not some kind of committed form that they have to sign and that they're absolutely have to do that or they're going to be penalized. No, it's nothing like that. It's more that they announced it and that they are intending to do that. So, and in most instances, especially with a company of that size, like the top five that I mentioned there, most often they're going to be going through with it. Very often it takes place not only over the course of months, but even years. And so it's not something where they just go in on a Friday and just, buy $100 billion worth of their own stock. That would be a little bit crazy. No, there's a science to it. There's a way to do that in relative to the day-to-day, week-to-week trading of your stock, so you don't unnaturally cause it to spike. Because if you got somebody who's coming in and placing a single trade, even for $1 billion in a single stock, even with a very large company, it can definitely tilt the market. And so that's why they do it very strategically, very intentionally. Like I said, often over the course of not just weeks and months, but even years. So kind of interesting that we're hitting that marker, $1 trillion in announced stock buybacks. And again, the biggest five that have announced: Apple, Google, NVIDIA, JP Morgan Chase, and Goldman Sachs. So we'll be watching those five, as we always do. Those stocks are always on our radar screen. Definitely want to keep those in mind as we're watching what's happening in the markets. All right, we're going to pivot a little bit here. I told you, and Mamie says that every time we go to break that we talk about food. I figure that I really have to do that. If we ever skip an episode here where we don't talk about food producer reasons, I'm sure we're going to hear it from somebody, probably from my wife. It's relative to talk about. Got to bring up this one. This one caught my eye, and it caught my eye because of the volume of this particular food product and it being sold commercially. I guess it probably shouldn't surprise me, and probably if you frequent this store that I'm going to mention next, it probably won't surprise you either. So I'm looking at you, Costco. Costco, publicly traded company. Charlie, Oscar, Sam, Tom, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock or the debt for that company. But they are offering, at least according to all things on the internet, which of course has to be true because it's on the internet, right? No, that's not true. It has been advertised, and there were pictures taken in a Costco somewhere of a 60-pound bucket of honey. Yeah. Now, when I saw that, I thought, okay, 60 pounds of honey. I'm thinking it's pretty much like a 5-gallon bucket. It's roughly that size. Okay. But I looked at it. So 60 pounds of honey in a bucket being sold at Costco, $115. And it was interesting as I was reading this story. It was interesting the commentary from the folks who were sought out for comment, including a couple of professional beekeepers who actually produce honey for a profession, and who said they were really concerned about the quality of the honey if you can get 60 pounds for $115, less than $2 a pound. They were saying it. And Costco has actually come out and said that it passes all of the metrics for the USDA, and so it's legitimate, and they can sell it in their stores. But because then I started thinking about it, because I love honey. Well, let's call it what it is. I don't think I've really bumped into many foods that I don't like, but I do like honey a lot. We're not in a space where we use a lot of honey, at least not in that kind of volume.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Who do you think would use 60 pounds of honey?
I don't know. Now, if you said 60 pounds of steak, I actually divide that in my head and say, yeah, that's about 30 meals for me.
Right.
Right.
That makes more
30
sense.
meals, so 60 pounds of steak. Give me 3 weeks, and I could probably consume that. That's not true. It's a little bit funny. It's somewhat true. But 60 pounds of honey. I mean, it's not like you're eating a pound or two at a time. At least I don't think you do.
Right.
With that kind. I mean, it may be if you like it in your tea. That's where I was thinking. So I was thinking, where do you go in your tea? If you're baking, right?
Personally, I only use honey like when I'm sick.
When you're sick, definitely it's a throat lozenge kind of thing, and I definitely put it on my biscuits because I'm all in the South.
Oh yeah.
So I'm definitely putting a lot of honey on the biscuit. Now I'm not putting a pound of. Well, I might sometimes put a pound of honey on there.
Depends on the day.
It depends. Yeah, it depends on how dry the biscuit is. Frankly. Right. so I may not be just putting that much on it if it's not very dry. But if it's dry, I may be a little heavier with it. But I was thinking, how long is it going to take you to use 60 pounds of honey? Now, that being said, it's my understanding, and I am certainly not a honey expert. If you are, 844-STUDIO-4, call in and make sure that you straighten us out here. But honey actually has been preserved not just through decades and centuries, but millennia. There have literally been discoveries of honey that are 1,000 years old, and so there must be some kind of sustaining quality that because of its natural composition, it doesn't allow it to rot in some instances.
Yeah.
So anyhow, what I'm saying is that there's some old honey out there, which makes it, which again, if you're looking at a 60-pound bucket of honey, then I guess that's good. So if you keep it around for 20, 25 years, it's going to be just fine after all that time. I don't know that that's the case.
I feel like it would take me my whole lifetime to go through 60 pounds.
That's a lot of honey.
I don't use it a lot.
And I like it too. So it's not like, let's say cough syrup, which I really don't like. So if you gave me 60 pounds or a 5-gallon drum of cough syrup, it would take me a long time to consume that because I really don't like it. But honey, I actually do like, and I still think it would take me a long time to do it. You know what I would do next? I would invest in biscuits. That's what I would do. Or you know what? I'd just make a daily stop at Bojangles. Just stop by.
Covered in honey.
That's it. Just a bag of biscuits, and I would take it home. And with my 5-gallon drum of honey, I'd definitely be the happiest guy on the block in doing that. But 60 pounds. They even showed a picture of it. It's amazing. All right, let's keep going. We're going to talk a little bit more food. You know that. We talk this a little bit. Saw this one come out. This is a fan favorite of this particular restaurant. And I saw it coming out. It's going to be out for a couple of months here. Because they only run it for about a month or two at a time. And I'm looking at you, Olive Garden. Olive Garden is part of a group called Darden Restaurants, which owns a number of banners, Smokey Joe's, Bahama Breeze. They own a number of different restaurants. DRI, David Roger Indian, is the ticker symbol for Darden Restaurants. Not a recommendation. Buy, sell, or hold the debt or the equity. Never-ending pasta bowl, producer Reese. Yeah, never-ending pasta bowl, $13.99. And it is exactly as it says, which means, I'm assuming they kick you out if you're there when the restaurant's closing. Like they're not going to say, all right, we'll stay with you here and hang with. 96 different combinations of pasta sauce and toppings. 96. Now, in putting that out there, there are people like me of simple mind who are like, I'd like to try all 96. I would I'm with you. I just want to say, okay, those are all and I'm sure some of the combinations are just the different pasta shapes, right? I mean, that has to be. So if you get elbows or you get the spaghetti, that has to be, for a different combination. 96 different combinations. I would definitely.
But I'm with you. Did you see my face?
I mean, it just sounds glorious to me. I'd be the guy that they would have to kick out there as they're turning out. Kind of like when you're at the high school dance and they turned off the lights or flickered the lights when they wanted everybody to leave. That would pretty much be me if I was sitting in the dining room there at Olive Garden. All right, we're going to take a couple of minutes here to hear from our sponsors. Going to get ready for the fourth quarter here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. Hang with us here as we come back in a moment on WSIC.
Make no mistake.
Did you say steak?
We'll be back to talk more finances and food on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
To be honest with you, we've just been downright spoiled over the last several days with our beautiful weather. Cool mornings, comfy afternoons. It's going to continue. Partly cloudy. We're into the low 80s this afternoon, down around 60 tonight. Mid-80s and dry for your Friday. Heading into the Labor Day weekend, we'll hover right there in the low to mid-80s with a low chance of an isolated shower or thunderstorm. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. On Thursday, August 28th, the 500 Club in Statesville presents the Thirsty Thursday tournament at 5:30 p.m. and wine tasting at 6. Click on the 500 Club online for more information on golf lessons, club memberships, wine tasting, tournaments, and tee times. Rocky Lynn performs Friday night on the Plaza at Birkdale Village in Huntersville. The free Live Under the Oaks outdoor concert series powered by Waves Entertainment begins at 6 p.m. Grab your friends and your chairs for the Rocky Lynn concert Friday at Birkdale Village. The Iredell County Fair begins Friday at the Fairgrounds in Troutman and continues through September 6th. The Statesville Kiwanis Club features carnival rides for all ages, competitive 4-H exhibits, animal shows, fireworks on Labor Day, and more. Visit IredellFair.com for more information on hours, tickets, entertainment, and daily schedules. The Iredell County Fair begins Friday at the Fairgrounds in Troutman. See the top riders from the Monster Energy AMA Supercross Championship on Saturday, September 6th, as they compete on a custom-built course at ZMAX Dragway. The playoff opener features a two-moto format for the 450cc class and 250cc class, promising plenty of drama and excitement from the moment the gates drop. Click on CharlotteMotorspeedway.com for tickets, a track map, and information on other 2025 events. Mark your calendars. Green Jeans Consignment returns to Concord September 9th to 14th at 601 Milestone Venue. Shop boutique finds, consign your closet, and feel beautiful on a budget. Details at greenjeansale.com. Stay up to date and find out about local events, job opportunities, real estate information, and more. Visit liveworkplaylkn.com and sign up for the weekly newsletter. That's liveworkplaylkn.com.
From market trends to retirement plans, Joshua Dobi has you covered. We're back with more Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. You're in the sprint run here, folks. 5 o'clock bell, if you're a 9-to-5er, is 11 minutes and 53 seconds away. And I appreciate you spending that time with us here, talking about all things economic and financial. And yeah, we're going to toss in, no pun intended, football and food there as well. We were just talking about the never-ending Pasta Bowl there at Olive Garden. Producer Reese made sure to let me know during the break. They're also one of his favorites. Can't disagree with you either. I've had it a number of times as well. Even though I don't think they have a never-ending Pasta Bowl, we got to look at Carrabba's. Yeah, I hear you. And again, I know we talk a lot about larger restaurants, and primarily because a lot of them are owned by publicly traded companies. So I got to tie it into finance somehow. But I also love our small family-owned joints. I truly do. And so there are a number of them in the area as well. Definitely have to give. And you know what? If you own one of those family-owned restaurants, 844-STUDIO-4, call in. Well, I mean, I got no problem talking about food with anybody, especially when it's it's the things that we like, which I'm pretty sure is about everything. So you can call. It doesn't matter what your restaurant is. Feel free to give us a buzz, and happy to do that. All right, I got one more food item, and then I'm going to let it go because I saw this one, and it was just, again, one of those things that caught your eye because of how outside the norm that it is. I'm looking at IHOP, the Old International House of Pancakes, so IHOP, breakfast place, right? Primarily breakfast foods, and I think they're open for lunch, But I also know some other ones that are open 24 hours as well.
Is that what it stands for?
Internet, no, not anymore. Now it's just IHOP. But the original one was, how you get IHOP, International House of Pancakes. Yes.
That's genius.
It is. I know. I know. Well, this is the reason why I'm bringing it up, because it's a pancake story. I'm going to do it real quick here because I know we're going to talk markets here in order to close out today's show. They have not only in select stores in New York, L.A., and Austin. So we're not getting it here in Charlotte, at least not initially. All right, which, two thumbs down that they're not having it around here. It is, this will caught my eye, a $100 stack of pancakes.
Okay.
Now, when I think of pancakes, I think of a relatively inexpensive meal. It's one of the reasons why I like it, right? You get the syrup, or if you're a fruit guy and you got blueberries and strawberries and definitely the whipped cream kind of stuff. I mean, all that good stuff, right?
Yeah, I agree.
It's a little bit different. This one, in order for it to be the $100 stack, we talked about Dubai chocolate here probably about 6 months or so ago, just because of how incredibly popular, almost cultish that this pursuit of this Dubai chocolate. I've never had any, by the way, full disclosure. So I'm assuming it's pretty good. Is it that much better than everybody else's chocolate? I don't know. But anyhow, it's this, let's call it semi-collaboration with Dubai chocolate. It includes on your stack of pancakes, $100 stack of pancakes, by the way, pistachio cream, toasted katafi, hazelnut spread, chocolate shavings, and the clincher, edible 24-karat gold. Now, I'm leaving that in very awkward pause in there by design so that you can think about what was just said. On top of your $100 stack of pancakes is edible 24-karat gold.
I would take that off the pancakes and sell it.
I would think would you want to just scrape it off or ask for an extra helping? Just put it onto a napkin, maybe fold it up and put it in your pocket. Your producer Reese, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Take it to the pawn shop.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Now, I would probably, because I don't think it's all you can eat, definitely, that you'd probably go broke and order enough pancakes in order to get enough gold to sell it there. But I did have that thought process. I've never heard of edible 24-karat gold. Maybe it's kind of like anything else. If you make it small enough that you probably won't notice it. And going down there, $100 stack of pancakes at IHOP.
I did want to bring something up.
I'm ready.
Did you see that Cracker Barrel changed their logo?
I did. Did you see
people are going crazy?
But it's now going back. Did you see that? So, by the way, Cracker Barrel, publicly traded company, Charlie Bravo, Roger Larry, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the equity or the debt. They came out with a logo change, and I think really a change in store format, and because it's kind of the kind of the folksy sort of country home.
Yeah, it wasn't
sort of,
just the logo.
Yeah,
it was the whole thing.
And they were going to change kind of the whole shooting match there, no pun intended. And they decided after some vehement negative feedback on doing that they're I believe this is what the statement said. I haven't read it verbatim from the company, but they're at least going a whole lot closer back to what it was.
Okay.
And not only, again, in terms of the logo, but in terms of store format, offerings, et cetera. So, yes, I did see that. Very interesting. Yeah. Very, very, very interesting. Branding's a tricky business. Yeah. Gosh, I'm glad I'm not in that business.
Either people love it or they hate it.
Yeah, and there have been a number of instances through the years that even the most iconic brands have just gone in a bad direction. I mean, Coca-Cola's done it. Coca-Cola, I mean, for those of you who happen to be of my particular vintage, which means if you're a male, you have less hair and what you have is gray. By the way, Coca-Cola, publicly traded company, Kelly Oscar, KO, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the equity or the debt. This would have been, I want to say, 40 years ago, came out with literally what was called New Coke. And that you talk about a way to ruin a brand.
I know about this.
Do you know about that? I mean,
yes.
One of the greatest branding blunders of all time. I mean, literally, you talk about from a brand recognition standpoint, I don't know what's above Coca-Cola. I mean, there may be some things that are equal. Maybe McDonald's is in the running there. Maybe in this day and age, maybe Microsoft is up there in terms of brand recognition. Tough to get much more recognizable than Coca-Cola. And I want to say it was about 40 years ago now. They came out with New Coke, basically a tweak to the formula, trying to attract a new audience. I think that was the idea. And it was, and they went through just tens of millions of dollars marketing campaign, and it was a lead balloon. There was such a revolt from
people hated
the purists, And so they got dropped. Literally just like all of that money, all of that investment, all that R&D just got stopped and went back. And then they came out, it was kind of interesting as maybe a mea culpa a little bit. They literally came out with a version of the regular Coke, and they called it Classic Coke. They could encourage folks that we're not giving up on the stuff that really made us famous over here. That happened. It was an amazing. So I mean, easy to point fingers to a public company. I mean, especially when they made blunders. I'm just saying that relative to Cracker Barrel, this is not a unique kind of experience.
Yeah.
That periodically, even the best and brightest of the brands try to do something a little bit different, and it's tricky. I mean, tricky is probably the most gentle way that I can describe it. It's really hard, because you don't want to give up, obviously, on your core constituents, your core customers, but you're also looking for opportunities to grow, to expand your customer base, right?
That's what I was going to say.
To be attractive to the next generation, whatever it may be, because you're always looking to grow the business, and that is tricky. Yeah. So Cracker Barrel figured that out pretty quick,
right?
And they're going back there. All right, let's keep going here. Got to talk a little bit more on the markets in terms of what's happening around us here. Pretty. I want to say boring. I am going to say boring. That's subjective. That's right. That's not an objective look at the markets, but it has been relatively boring here over the last couple of weeks. I thought with the Federal Board of Governors. I've said that a couple times now. The Fed Reserve Board of Governors meeting in Jackson Hole, Wyoming last week. I thought with NVIDIA's quarterly earnings report this week, I expected some more volatility in the market, frankly, more negative volatility. But when you actually look at over the last couple of weeks, I mean, we had some big down days, we had some big up days, pretty much ended up the same place where we started about 2 weeks ago. So very, very interesting. It's almost as though the market is looking for a little bit more of a catalyst to move in a positive or a negative direction at this point, and we really don't have it. So we're going to have to watch and see. I know that the futures markets have all but said of certainty their expectation of a 25 basis point rate cut in the overnight lending rate from the Federal Reserve Board next month, or coming up here in a couple of weeks. If that doesn't happen, there will definitely be a negative whiplash in the market. I don't anticipate, unless something really unusual economically would happen, that would shift at this point. But anything could happen, certainly in any given day. So that the market is really anticipating that. But it's almost like, and markets do this periodically. They just get quiet, and they're really looking for a catalyst, either positive or negative, to really make its next substantial move in any particular direction. I mean, you've heard me talk about it for a while now, and it's not because I'm a glass half empty kind of guy. I'm really a glass half full kind of guy. I've been waiting for the market to take a breather. I've been waiting for it to pull back here. Thought that was going to happen back in March and April, whenever tariffs became just the de facto new word of the day, and it did for about 3.5 weeks. And then the markets just roared back from there, and not only got back to where they were, but got notably beyond where they were. So there's been a substantial amount of bounce back from that. So that definitely wasn't the pullback, at least not of any means. I hope you were able to buy some of your favorite stocks if they dipped down and bounced back up during that time. But it happened very, very quickly on a relative basis. So what does that mean? Well, if we keep on our current pace, and that's making some very broad-based assumptions, which are very limited in their value, I understand that. But if we keep on our current pace and essentially end, just from a market index standpoint, we end the year this year like we are right now. So we've got basically another quarter and some change to go, or 4 months left. That would be 3 consecutive superlative in terms of above the average market return years, as measured by our most popular indices. I'm looking at you, Dow Jones Industrial Average, at you, S&P 500 Index, and certainly at you, NASDAQ Composite. So that would be unusual, folks. I mean, having 3 consecutive ones, if we end up that way, that would be very, very unusual. Now, it's not that I want the markets to go down. Don't be saying Dobi's saying that he doesn't like positive markets. No, definitely not looking the gift horse in the proverbial mouth. What I am saying is that relative to the law of averages, if you've been running above the average for a notable period of time, at a certain point, wait for it, you got to run below the average in order to get, here comes the equation, the average, right? I mean, that's how it works, right? That's how we get averages. You got to run above them for a while. You got to run below them for a while. That's how we get averages. Now, there are those who counter that and say, well, maybe this is a shift in trend. Okay. I'm very open to listening to that. You're going to have to shift about 90 years worth of trend, which is a pretty sizable kind of lift if that's going to be the case. Not saying it can't happen, but that would be a pretty sizable lift. So I'd be interested in further data that would support that kind of argument. Really, what I'm saying is just be cautious, folks. We had NVIDIA's earnings this past week. Heard a lot of enthusiasm about that as well, which happens with that kind of company. Just be cautious. Be cautious of what you own. If you got some big winners, maybe take some of the cream off the proverbial top. Maybe sell a little bit of it. Put it back in cash there or some treasuries. Hold on to it. Maybe wait for a pullback to buy back in. Not saying that's advice for everybody, but it's at least something to consider. Friends, I appreciate so much you hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. We're going to come back next week, Thursdays at 4 o'clock, talking more economics, talking more financials, and I promise you a little bit of football and food too. See you then.
Serving you before WSIC, Statesville, W290DK Mooresville, W260